And having worked with hundreds of businesses and also had the benefit of talking to thousands of candidates over the year, of course, one of the times in which people will come to me is when they're looking for a job. And sometimes that's not because where they are is bad, but a lot of the time it will be because their working environment they're not enjoying. And so much a part of that would be because there's a toxic culture or one that doesn't align with their values. Of course, you're only seeing or hearing one side of the story, and maybe that's not a perfect perspective, but no doubt culture is so important to hire and retain people, and the impact of however you define good or bad. And that's definitely an area that you should give some consideration to, can make a big deal to your ability to build the best team. We've done a retention report over the last few years, and I think over a couple of editions, we've surveyed something like 500 candidates who have all left a job in the previous 4 months. They talk about 3 things that consistently would cause them to leave a job. And we shared the research in Sifted last year, and they cleverly termed it the 3 C's. So compensation being one of them. So money matters, and you need to get that right rather than assume that people, even if you have a positive impact, will work for free or at a vastly reduced rate. But it's never been the top reason people have left a job. So it's always been number 3. And what's shifted, but not meaningfully, over the last couple of years, 1 and 2, the other 2 C's, career progression and culture. And I think if you talk to anybody that's had some exposure to the world of work, whether it's as an employee, a founder, or both, they would talk about the one to progress and do more of what they're good at, what they enjoy. And they would also, over and above their job title and salary, they would talk about the culture, the values, the people they work with, the environment. And that's a massive part of how you can have more productive and engaged teams, but also how you individually can walk away at the end of the day enjoying the environment you're in. The culture and the values is a huge part of it. Some founders recognize that, some founders don't. I think also where we're often engaged with that founding to scaling, I don't think you want to take away all your values and start all over again, but you do need to recognize that things will probably change as you go through that scaling journey. Maybe you go from a slightly more chaotic and risk-orientated culture to one that has a bit more process and stability built into it. And that may mean that some of the people that joined you for the first stage of the journey aren't going to be as engaged in the second stage. I don't think you shift 180 in terms of your culture and values, but it needs to be not something that's done on day 1 or day 1,000, and the expectation be that either those 2 will align or that you can join the gaps. It's an ongoing and everyday conversation, and so much of it has to come into the definition on the hiring to get it right. What you're talking about, good culture, bad culture, toxic culture, it does matter. Probably what matters more is the transparency with which you talk about that. The worst thing you can do is leave these things that are important from a culture and a values perspective until someone's joined you and been there. So if we pick on Goldman Sachs and say that some people would say they have a bad culture, my argument would be that if they are, and I believe they are, very transparent about that up front, come in here, work 80 hours a week, we will ask you to do this, you won't be allowed to do this, but after 3 years you come out with a load of money, a really strong network, whatever it is the value exchange is, I don't have a problem with that, because they're being really clear up front. They will deter the people that is not aligned with, and they will attract the people that is aligned with. What is far worse in my experience is a company that says, hey, we're helping to solve the climate crisis here, and we're all good people. And then you come into the environment and it's full of jerks. You're not allowed to speak up. It doesn't have that psychological safety. And they've brought you in on the basis of a positive impact and vision, but haven't been transparent around the way things are done around here, the values and the culture. And again, going back to that transparency and that authenticity, it's really important to be upfront about so many of those things so that you attract and repel rather than assume that what you're doing is going to be right for everybody.